area here at Grand Prix Madrid. Hello and welcome to this round 10 of Grand Prix Madrid. We have two teams that have just a single loss under the belts at 7-1 and 1 apiece, and we're going to get a chance to see Carsten Linden up against Jasper Grimmer. Carsten known here for having a slightly unusual deck in the form of Death's Shadow in Legacy. On the other side of things, Jasper Grimmer, he's known for something a little bit different, which is that he loves taking cards that only exist in black border and giving them a white border. Shield your eyes, folks, in the chat. That is a white-bordered Scalding Tarn. There's a white-bordered Snapcaster Mage, white-bordered Brainstorms. No white-bordered Wasteland just yet for him. If you're going to go for style points, get all of the points, Jasper. But Carsten Linden carefully noting down what's in hand as he kicks things off with a Gitaxian Probe, and we could potentially see quite a bit more from him. Linden, he does have Death Shadow going on in Legacy, and one of the cool things that he's able to employ in Legacy is that, yes, he actually still has Gitaxian Probe to work with alongside Street Wraith and so on. He gets to go low on life very easily. He also has Force of Will, though. He also has Daze. He also has the ability to be a real control deck that basically treats its Death Shadow as a one-off win condition that can very easily get things going.
He kept a no-lander. Oh, man. No-lander into Gitaxian Probe, Street Wraith. Gitaxian Probe still no land. Discard on turn 1. Uh-oh.
Yep, that's not exactly what he was looking for. Relatively straightforward what he was looking for. He's looking for a land.
This is not Manaless Dredge. This is Death Shadow missing its first land drop. That's not good news.
And Linden does consider himself to be something of a specialist on... there's a white-bordered, unglued basic island. I kind of like the look of that one, actually. I've always liked the unglued lands. Into a ponder here from Jasper Grimmer.
I know there exist sleeves with black border, which make your card black border. Are these sleeves or are these altered islands?
No, Jasper does it pretty properly, if such a thing is even even proper and right and good. We may yet see a white-bordered Force of Will.
And Koch, Linden, and Clocker were actually undefeated going into day 2. They were at 7 and a draw. They lost their first round, and now Carsten Linden already discarding on turn 1.
Has found a land on turn 2, though, in Overgrown Tomb. Not normal for you to see too many pain lands in Legacy, but it makes perfect sense when he casts that Death Shadow. Death Shadow currently a 1-1, and he's going to be able to protect it with Force of Will, which will in turn also make it bigger.
Yeah, problem is that he knows about the Wasteland in Jasper's hand and about the Swords to Plowshares. He does have the Force of Will, though. Double Force of Will, but if he has to play both of these, that will cost him 4 cards, which is certainly not what you want to be doing, as he already lost a card in the form of Dismember, which he had to discard because of not having his first land on turn 1.
Now, where things get kind of interesting here is that Carsten Linden, he does have a few extra tools above and beyond Force of Will in this Legacy format. He also has access to Berserk, which is Teemo Battle Rage, only it doesn't need 2 mana, just the 1 mana for Berserk, sometimes even potentially acting as a removal spell if he absolutely needs to. There, he does let his Death Shadow die to Swords to Plowshares. Stoneforge Mystic, the follow-up, is getting hit by Force of Will, pitching a Brainstorm here.
You gotta give it to Jasper, though. He's also altering his beta Tundras, making them white-bordered.
I'm not sure that that's actually what's happening. That looks like a revised Tundra to me, but I could easily be wrong. Jasper, this is just how he likes to do things. The team of Anne Huschenbeth, Toralf Severin and Jasper Grimmer. Definitely something of a powerhouse here.
Would that also count as style points if all 3 teams do that? It would, right?
We would have to consult
all
Frank
three
Carsten on that one.
All 3 players.
Polluted Delta here coming down for Jasper Grimmer.
I like how Carsten did not counter the Swords to Plowshares, instead keeping his counters for more important spells like Stoneforge Mystic. I don't think his Death Shadow would have won him the game anyway. It is much more important now to make sure that Jasper cannot develop his board while Carsten is still stuck on 0 lands.
Yeah, this is a really interesting position because it's not super easy for Jasper to get loads on the board, given that there's another Force of Will coming from Carsten Linden here. He's looking at a True Name Nemesis. If he can ever get that down, it represents a very, very straightforward way of breaking this matchup wide open, but he will have to fight through some counter magic to get there.
Yeah, there is no way for Carsten Linden actually to get rid of the True Name Nemesis. Of course, there is still Berserk, together with a very big Death Shadow. Berserk gives trample, or
It
just
does.
double strike? Yeah, so
Well,
double strike.
It doubles the power. Double strike was not a thing.
Okay. Doubles the power and trample.
And the good thing about that is it means that if you cast multiple Berserks, they stack up kind of nicely.
So you could have a 12-12 Death Shadow, Berserker 24-20, 48-48 Death Shadow, possibly for Carsten Linden.
It doesn't do the toughness, it just does the power.
Oh,
sorry, I'm
48-12.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, Bloodstained Mire. We're back on the board with lands for Carsten Linden. Desperately hoping not to see another Wasteland from the other side of things.
Yeah, funnily enough, Death Shadow, Engineered Explosives, not that good against what Carsten is trying to do at this point. He's just hoping to draw a second land and play a Gurmuk Angler.
Sacrifices his Bloodstained Mire here.
This is not modern. He is fetching up a Watery Grave. We are looking at Legacy. Of course, he is also running some of the traditional dual lands in the form of Underground Sea. Just once he got too low, he does want to make sure he is able to find a land that doesn't cost him 2 life. But he's combining it with the lands we see in modern. Watery Grave, Overgrown Tomb, just to make sure he gets down on life as soon as possible.
Now you can see if you are looking to pick up a copy of Brainstorm, Magic 25 will do it, though that is a Mercadian Masks version there. Brainstorm, it's been around since Ice Age, quite a lot of different versions to choose from. Very, very powerful card. Powerful enough to be restricted in Vintage. True Name Nemesis, though, has resolved. Carsten Linden on 8 life. A clear and present danger on the battlefield now.
Yeah, very dangerous. He does have the Berserk, but it seems like he still is missing that second land. So he is in all sorts of trouble. His Brainstorm did not deliver him a second land, and now he knows next draw won't be land either. So has to play the Gurmuk Angler. Doesn't have the land to protect it with the likes of, for example, Stubborn Denial. Yep.
I think there is a Stubborn Denial in hand for him, but he's just going to have to sweat through this one turn. True Name Nemesis, aptly named.
Even the Caracas is white bordered. Look at that.
I mean, if you're going to do this, you might as well go for it. True Name Nemesis and an Engineered Explosives, currently not white border. One has to wonder whether or not there's just sort of every now and again Jasper has a little sort of like, all right, what am I going to do today? Today I'm going to make my cards a strange white bordered aberration of what they once were.
And how does he select which cards stay as they are and which cards become white bordered?
I guess that the ones that are white border are the ones that he knows that he's going to be working with for some time. The black bordered ones are more speculative, perhaps. And that is literally a guess. Stoneforge Mystic comes along here and allows Jasper Grummer to search out things. While he's doing so, he's just activating that Scalding Tarn, save a little bit of time. We did just flick past some white bordered Force of Wills there. Worth noting, Force of Will never printed in white border, neither was Umezawa's Jite, the card searched up for by Stoneforge Mystic. Umezawa's Jite on that True Name Nemesis at some point could be pretty good, but to be perfectly honest, I'm not really sure it's going to be necessary. This is all just showing off at this point for Jasper Grummer, potentially. That Gurmag Angler on its own, not necessarily achieving too much.
Yeah, even Berserk would only make a 10-5 Gurmuk Angler, so Carsten will need to find a second Berserk and 2 green sources to play them.
I mean, 2 Berserks on a 5-5 is a full 20 damage.
Are we going to see a chump here? Yeah, could actually see that. I mean, he is still at 16, but with that shadow, it could grow quite quickly.
That the from the vault version of Berserk.
Now, of course, the Jide could come on the true name Nemesis. Carson is at 5, so he's 2 damage short, but putting 2 counters on that Jide and countering the Dead Ride Shaman, making sure you still have lethal next turn. I like that play by Jasper, not giving his opponent the second mana source he wants and locking up the game.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but kind of a reality of Legacy that sometimes you do get games that are decided simply by Wasteland or the equivalent. Typically, these decks have very, very aggressive curves. They go very low to the ground when it comes to the mana requirements of them. And as a consequence of not having very many expensive spells, they also don't need to have as many lands. If you're using fetch lands in a way, that's also thinning down the amount of lands that you have in your deck. And it means that 1-2 key wastelands can turn a game from being a regular game of Magic into one person knocking on top of their deck turn after turn after turn.
Jasper's deck is blue-white Stoneforge. Usually when we see blue-white these days in Legacy, it is blue-white Miracles, but people still like their Stoneforge. Still a very powerful card, being able to fetch up the likes of Batterskull or Umezawa's Jide, and sometimes even after Cyber Swords of Fire and Ice or something like that. Very powerful. It does play 4 Stoneforge Mythic. I don't find any Swords of Fire and Ice or other swords, so just Batterskull and Umezawa's Jide.
Now, worth noting that as Jasper Grimmer was winning his Game 1, Toral Severin and Arne Huschenbeth both winning their Game 1s as well. So Elias Klocker, Florian Koch and Carsten Linden in the unenviable position of having to find 4 game wins between them before the other team find 2.
Yeah, Klocker, Koch and Linden not having the best day so far. I also like not only Karsten is playing a rather creative deck, also Elias Klocker, he's playing, there we see it, Abs and Tokens, also a deck we haven't seen that much.
Yeah, Hidden Stockpile, Anointed Procession, that's a deck that can get a whole lot of tokens in play very, very easily indeed, gum up that board quite a bit. And playing against Blue-Black Control in the hands of Arne Huschenbeth, that's a deck that we've seen plenty of in this format. The modern matchup, it's mono green Tron on both sides. I'm not sure that there's too many massive edges to be gained there. And then, of course, we have this Legacy Death Shadow versus Jeskai Stoneblade. And I think that I may have seen in Jasper Grimmer's sideboard that he does have access to a couple of red cards. He's got Red Elemental Blast, Pyroblast. That not necessarily too surprising. Also a couple of copies of Blood Moon, though, which might be an interesting one.
Yeah, something to look out for when you're playing against a deck like Blue-White Miracles, Blue-White Stoneblade, is whether or not they play a red land in game number 1. Usually they don't run any red spells in the main deck, but after Cyber they sometimes bring in the likes of Red Elemental Blast and Blood Moon. Both very powerful card in different matchups. Blood Moon, for example, of course, a house against lands, especially if you don't see it coming and they have not cybered their Crozen Grips, and Red Elemental Blast, of course, very good in, for example, the mirror, countering a chase for 1 blue, for 1 red mana, or 1 true name Nemesis.
So just these players finish up their sideboarding. We're going to get a little bit of a look at the standings as things stand right now. Bonda Peterson and Evolson, right now, they are alone at the absolute top of the standings. The one extra draw that they have on the field means that they're at 25 points. We saw a couple of losses from the other teams that had gone undefeated earlier on. So Bonda Peterson and Evolson setting the pace for the field. And a couple of other big names, though. Watsfeld Larsen and Nystrom, they're at 22 points. Elias Watsfeld, in the last 2 Pro Tours, has not lost a limited match. He did not lose any limited matches between Ixalan or Rivals of Ixalan, meaning that he is very clearly out front in the run for Draft Master. Obviously, limited, one of the few formats that we don't have to look at here this weekend in Madrid. Though we were talking about if you were going to make it 6-man teams, what 3 other formats would you include? Suggestions of Two-Headed Giant, Pauper, Vintage, of course, in there. I personally like the idea of having a little bit of Invasion Block Constructed in the mix as well, but maybe that's just me. The team of Simon and Dominic Gertsen alongside Nicholas Laban at 21 points, doing very well for themselves, having picked up the bye last round. Hendricks, Floch and Strasky. I know that Andrei Strasky was saying that he maybe didn't have as good a night's sleep last night as he was hoping for, but hopefully he will be able to find a way of piloting his way through what he needs to and getting there nonetheless. Once we get down below 21 points, this is where it gets a little bit dicey for those teams that are trying to make a run on the top four. Mengucci, Calcano and Dominguez still at 21 points. Nielsen, Glogowski, Godek at 21 points. Folks, Ward and Burns Lees, that another team that I know a lot of people are looking out for, still at 21 points. We may get a chance to see them in the feature match area at some point in the next round or two.
Nielsen, Glogowski got it. Yeah.
All right.
That would be a good headline for if they win the GP.
Well, I'm sure that they would endorse that choice very much, because that would mean, of course, that they just won the GP. A lovely position to be in, and a relatively rarefied position for anyone to achieve. And these guys just presenting their decks now. Carsten Linden looking to win one back over Jasper Grimmer, who was able to take down that first game comparatively easily simply by dealing with the initial lands of Linden, who kept a zero land hand. I think that the odds are probably with him on a zero land hand with a 1 copy of Gitaxian Probe, 2 copies of Street Wraith. We would have to get Frank Carsten on the case to do the maths on that one to be 100% sure, but I think I like that keep. Obviously it didn't work out for him, but I don't think that necessarily means that it was a bad choice in the dark.
Let me grab my phone and call Dr. Frank and check. I don't think he had the second copy of Detection Probe. I think he had 1 copy of Detection Probe, 1 Street Raid. I believe he's running some, let's count, 4, 8, 10, 13, 14, only 18 lands, so I'm not even sure he's a favorite of drawing 18 out of 53, drawing 2. I'm not even sure. I think it's close to 50-50 of him missing his first land drop, so I'm not sure I like that keep. If he had 2 Detection Probe and 1 Street Trade, he's a favorite of hitting that second land drop, but I think otherwise it's about 50-50. Maybe the guys in the chat who are good at math can actually help us out and do the calculations for us.
Okay, so it looks like we've got a mulligan here from Jasper Grimmer here, not liking his opening 7, whereas Carsten happy on his.
To be fair, I don't think this is a good matchup for Carsten Linden. He is hoping to kill his opponent with a big Dead Shadow or Gurmak Angler, but his opponent is running 4 Swords to Plowshares. That card is probably the best against this deck, the card you don't want to face when you're trying to kill your opponent. Fatal Push is another card which you don't want to face, but at least that one doesn't kill the Gurmak Angler. The Swords to Plowshares kills both, and if you're unlucky enough, it kills 2 Dead Shadow. If you played 2 Dead Shadow, you Swords to Plowshares one of them, they both die because you gain life, and the other one goes to a 0-0.
Lovely point there. It's something that's got the potential to come up. In the meantime, though, we get a chance to watch Jasper Grimmer doing a little bit more shuffling as he's now going down to 5 cards in hand.
5 cards, of course, not a lot, but still not out of it. That's what I also like about Legacy. Cards like Brainstorm, they do allow you to come back into the game by shuffling away some useless cards. So usually your mulligans will be a little bit less harsh.
It is still 1 game up for the whole of Anna Huschenbech, Toralf Silverin and Jasper Grimmer here against Elias Klocker, Florian Koch and Carsten Linden. 5 cards to work with now for Jasper Grimmer. He's got land, he's got spells. Some of those spells even involve drawing cards. I don't think he can ask for much more than that.
And also important is the basic island. Being able to play around Wasteland. Does Carsten have 4? Yeah, he's got 4 copies of Wasteland. So of course having a basic land on turn 1, quite important. Also if you're sideboarding Blood Moon, you really want to make island, plains, and then grab a red source to play the Blood Moon.
So a little bit of a better start here for Carsten Linden, though he's done a terrible job of hurting his life total in the early stages.
Now a Brainstorm in response to the Thoughtseize. Carsten has the Stubborn Denial, but apart from that, he's actually out of gas. Look at that, 3 lands. Not the best draw for Carsten. And Jasper Grimmer has Snapcaster Mage, Force of Will. I'm guessing we're going to see a Snapcaster Mage here. Hit the bin. Force of Will not that good if you already mulligan down to 5. Force of Will, a great card in Legacy, don't get me wrong, but it is a card that basically card disadvantage, something you don't want to do once you mulligan down to 5.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and there are some matchups where you see people sideboarding out the Force of Wills if they're playing kind of a fair matchup because they represent card disadvantage compared to other options available to them.
And now a basic plane, so the Wastelands in Karsten hand won't do much. He really needs to draw a Brainstorm. Instead draws a Pyroblast, not the worst draw either. I like playing the fetch land here. Imagine if Karsten draws a Brainstorm. He wants to shuffle away the 2 Wastelands. So you don't want to play a Wasteland here, you want to play the fetch land in case you draw a Brainstorm. Nice little play. You need to remember when playing Legacy. Keep your excess lands in hand. Play the fetch land, that's fine, but don't crack it. Wait till you draw the Brainstorm so you can crack it after using the Brainstorm.
Yeah, Brainstorm, one of the key cards in this entire format, and plenty has been thought about the best way of playing it, the best timing of playing it. As things stand here, Jasper Grimmer able to sit back, just playing fetch lands, not cracking them just yet. Deathrite Shaman, it's going to take a while for it to really have a massive impact on this game.
Yeah, now Karsten getting rewarded by keeping these Wastelands in hand. He will be able to shuffle them away. The Misty Rainforest is still waiting. Smart little play. And you can see that Karsten is experienced in Legacy. This is something good experienced Legacy players do often.
Now, considering that Jasper Grimmer has mulliganed to 5, he's actually not having too bad a game. At least it's worked out that the draw from Karsten Linden has not been one that is going low on life and deploying a Death Shadow super early. That could have been potentially very problematic. This is, in some respects, a slow draw from Karsten Linden's deck.
On the other hand, Jasper has not resolved a spell yet in this game. His only spell he played is the Brainstorm, and that one got countered by Stubborn Denial. So he's still looking to resolve the first spell. Let's take a look at his hand. Oh, it's still 2 lands and the Force of Will. At least he's almost at 5 lands, being able to play that Force of Will.
Taxim Probe doing lots of work for Karsten Linden here, lowering his life total, which he certainly doesn't mind when he's playing with Death Shadow, drawing him a card, giving him just a little bit more information. He knows right now that the coast is completely clear for him to resolve whatever he wants.
I was a bit surprised to see Karsten actually attack with the Death Shadow, with the
Shaman?
With the Shaman instead of exiling the Brainstorm. I think it's a good thing to exile the Brainstorm in case...
He has already exiled the Brainstorm.
Oh, it's not the Snapcaster Mage that's exiled?
I don't believe so.
I thought he's... Yeah, of course, yeah. Okay, then I understand the attack. He could also exile his own instant or sorceries, but that would mean he's got less cards in his graveyard, for example, for Gurmak Angler. So I actually like the play of attacking then.
Big Daddy Zombie Fish already down, ready to get stuck in here. A lot of work to be done here by Jasper Grimmer if he's going to get back in this game. See the Gurmag Angler. He's got his little lure out there, mouth open. Don't go close. Just don't do it.
Yep.
Search for Azcanta coming down here. And finally a spell resolve for Jasper Grimmer.
Yeah,
the crowd goes wild.
Cheers all around. Fortunately, only 1 card in the graveyard, and even that one could be exiled with the Deathrite Shaman. Search for Azcanta. And I am always amazed by how good Wizards is at finding new cards for Legacy that are not too broken for Modern or Standard. Because Legacy is a very special format. It's hard to make a card that's good enough for it that isn't too broken for Standard. And this card is a perfect example. Search for Azcanta, good in Legacy, and also just good, not too broken for Standard.
Yeah, threading the needle in that regard, very tricky. And often it comes down to cards that have a very specialized purpose. So things that interact well with low-cost spells often end up being very good in these older formats where mana curves are a little lower. occasionally things specifically relating to artifacts as well, especially for the likes of vintage, can be relevant. Pyroblast there, dealing with that search for Azcanta, never getting to transform into Azcanta the Sunken Ruin.
Pyroblast, of course, not only able to counter a blue spell, but also to destroy it if needed. And we see a scoop for Jasper Grimmer. We're going to game number 3.
All right, these guys shuffling up. Again, this is the first game to complete in the sort of second set of games, so Carsten Linden squaring things up. He's going to be hoping that his teammates Florian Koch and Elias Klock are able to do something similar to his left-hand side. This is, of course, a team competition, so even if you win your match, if your teammates both lose theirs, well, you're plumb out of luck. You have to just hope that you can string together your wins a little bit better in other rounds. Though I've heard about the conversations of being efficient in where you take your losses in team tournaments. Ideally, if you win every round 2-1, that's completely fine because you've won every round. And occasionally, if it works out that sort of the deck that wins a vast proportion of its matchups happens to have mana issues and lose one round. If it does that in a round where your teammates happen to have good draws or are playing particularly well, doesn't matter in the slightest. A lovely feeling when you're the player on a team. Obviously, you would like to be winning your games, but when you're the player on the team that somehow just gets the golden ticket, where in spite of not maybe winning so many rounds, you're still able to make it into those final stages of the competition.
Yeah, and you can win a round by going 4-4 in games. If you 2-1 in the winning matches and lose the other match 0-2, both teams won 4 games, but you were the one winning, so important to split these wins in the right way. So
these players just shuffling up here, likely to be not quite so much sideboarding between games 2 and 3 as we saw between game 1 and 2. Kind of got the measure of what each other's doing at this point. Just a matter of making sure that if there are spot adjustments to be made, maybe based on being on the play or the draw, that those are all taken into account here. Not had a chance to see the Berserks out of Carsten Linden's deck yet, and I'm not sure whether or not they are at their best in this matchup. What do you think, Moraine?
Yeah, I think it's a card you probably want to be sideboarding out. Swords to Plowshares is just too good. There might even be something like Terminus, which you don't know yet about, which can get rid of a creature at instant speed thanks to Brainstorm. So I think Berserk is not the best card in this particular matchup. I think Berserk is more a card against, for example, Storm, against other combo decks like Elves, where you want to give your creatures trample. But I don't think this particular matchup you want to be drawing Berserk.
Big fan of the original Dan Fraser artwork for the Berserk. It's been around since Alpha. It's very, very powerful. Happy to see it getting a chance to take a turn around the room here in this Legacy event. Or in this team event, including Legacy, should I say. All right, 7-card hands, please. Ideally, all of them having at least one land in. We've had a strange set of draws in this feature match area between Carsten Linden and Jasper Grimmer. I want to see a good old, honest-to-goodness game of Magic the Gathering right now.
Yeah, these are always the best to have on camera, especially in Good Morning Magic. You don't often get to see these creative decks, especially not going undefeated. I mean, Carsten Linden, they were undefeated after day 1 with 2 more of the creative decks in the room. So a very good performance there by them.
So Jasper Grimmer's got an interesting hand here. He has an early Blood Moon, but by the looks of it, most of the lands in his hand are non-basics. So if he casts it, then it's going to be a weird sort of shutdown for a little bit of time as each of these players tries to find a way of getting out. And there's going to be no surprises with this Blood Moon here as a Gitaxian Probe comes from Carsten Linden.
If there is one card I could pick that always gets played on turn 1 when we're seeing games on camera, it would be the Gitaxian Probe. It makes it so much easier for us. We get to see all the cards. We don't have to guess what they're holding. We just get to see it. Right now, Council Judgment, Blood Moon, Swords to Plowshares, Volcanic Island, Tundra, and a Flooded Strands for Jasper Grimmer. Importantly, he already has the red source and the Flooded Strands, so he could search up a plains or an island and play the red source to resolve the Blood Moon if he wants to.
But here we see Carsten Linden still goes for the Wasteland in spite of the fact that he's seen that there's lots of land in hand for Jasper Grimmer.
I was a bit surprised that Jasper plays the Tundra instead of the fetch land, but I guess that's fine since he's got enough lands. He doesn't really mind if his opponent skips his first turn to destroy one of his 4 lands. So nice little play by Jasper Grimmer, which I think is correct. It's something you don't want to... If your hand is Tundra, Flooded Strand and 5 spells, you don't want to play your Tundra turn 1. You want to play the fetch land, because that one protects yourself against Wasteland. But if you're holding 4 lands, feel free to play that Tundra in the hopes that your opponent skips his first turn by wastelanding.
Now, here we see Carsten Linden on the second turn. He's already played a Gitaxian Probe, and he's looking at a Thoughtseize in hand. So, based on what he knows of Jasper Grimmer's hand, I guess that now we're going to find out how afraid he is of the likes of Blood Moon. Does play the Thoughtseize out here. There's going to be one new card that he doesn't know about.
Yeah, and this is an interesting choice. He's got Stubborn Denial for the Blood Moon. So Blood Moon, it will cost at least 4 if Jasper wants to resolve it. But if he takes the Blood Moon, he leaves Jasper with 2 removal spells, and we know his deck is hard at beating a lot of removal spells. His hand is Dead Shadow, Stubborn Denial, Stubborn Denial. So this is a tough choice. Yeah, I think I like taking the cheap card, because that at least doesn't give Jasper the chance to resolve 2 spells in 1 turn. I mean, if you need 6 mana, that's probably not going to happen here in Legacy.
Ponder the pickup there for Jasper Grimmer, immediately cracking a Scalding Tarn. And the fact that he's fetching this basic island, signaling that yes, he is completely willing and happy to go down the path of casting this Blood Moon that's in hand, that's been left there by Carsten Linden.
Yeah, now, thanks to still having that second fetch land. Also very important here by Jasper, he sacrificed the Scalding Tarn. He did not sacrifice the Flooded Strand, because the Flooded Strand lets him find a plains, whereas Scalding Tarn does not let him do that. It's just these small differences that can make, well, whether you win or lose. In Legacy, you see that a lot.
We do have a score update on our modern match. Toralf Severin, 2-0 over Florian Koch in the monogreen Tron mirror, able to presumably get a few things going with Khan and friends in our middle match. So the right-hand side of our table, Arne Huschenbech, Toralf Severin and Jasper Grimmer. Between Jasper Grimmer and Arne, they need to find one more game win in order to take this match. We're with Jasper Grimmer against Carsten Linden, but Arne Huschenbech, he may be able to snipe the victory from us if he's able to win his game 2 against Elias Clocker before things close out in this Legacy match.
Yeah, and Jasper did not shuffle his second draw after Ponder, so Carsten knows Jasper has drawn at least 2 good cards which he wanted. The third card does get shuffled away, so he doesn't have to worry about that one. But usually when your opponent plays Ponder, you hope that he either shuffles right away or at least shuffles away the second and third card. But this did not happen. Jasper, his second draw was a Stoneforge Mystic. Also nice to know, when you're playing cards like Ponder and you don't plan on shuffling away, it's probably better to hide the best card on top of your deck, because you do not lose it to a Thoughtseize should your opponent have that.
Well, Jasper Grimmer, he's got basics. He's got a basic Plains and a basic Island. So from here on out, if he does end up resolving a Blood Moon, it will be able to work very, very nicely for him.
Jasper plays the Tundra as his third land, doesn't want to expose his Volcanic Island to Wasteland. Another great play by Jasper. He knows he doesn't have a lot of red sources in his deck, but there's plenty of white and blue sources, especially with that basic Island and basic Plains.
Stoneforge Mystic finding a Batterskull for him there. And Arne Huschenbech has tied up this match. He's managed to get the extra win needed, so that means that this is all about style points now. Now, we can see that Jasper Grimmer is all about the style points.
Yep.
He's already got a deck that is largely white bordered, and that's not that these cards, he's managed to find versions that are white bordered. He has altered various of these cards to get to that place. He is going to continue playing out this game to see if he can make it the full 3-match sweep, and we will be staying with it for each and every moment. A little treat for the viewers at the specific request of our producer Rich Hagen. These guys are playing it out.
Thank you, Uncle Rich.
So Carsten Linden here, trying to win something back now, playing a Ponder, following it up with an Underground Sea here. And now just finally dropping below 13, meaning that there is the potential for him to actually start casting Death Shadows from here on out.
Look at that. Only blue and black for Carsten. He knows he needs black and blue for Stubborn Denial plus Death Shadow. His Death Shadow only a 3-3, so Stubborn Denial only able to 4-spike at this point. But should he Force of Will first, it will grow to a 4-4, and then it will be the full mode. The full negate mode.
Yeah, the life total is a little deceptive, as always, anytime that you're dealing with a Death Shadow deck. While it is 10 to 18 here, there's definitely potential for Carsten Linden to deal a lot of damage in very short order thanks to that Death Shadow. And Stubborn Denial does not need any help against that Swords to Plowshares, because making it cost one more, exactly the amount needed. However, that does now mean that Carsten Linden's tapped out. If we were in Modern, that would essentially mean that the shields were fully down. However, this is Legacy, and there is a Force of Will in hand for Carsten Linden. So if he sees something that he doesn't like coming down here from Jasper Grimmer, he does have a few options to deal with it. Engineered Explosives for one, that seems pretty good. That might warrant a response here from Carsten Linden.
Carsten cannot counter it because he knows about the Blood Moon. Yeah, he needs to keep his Force of Will for the Blood Moon, but that does mean the Engineered Explosive for one sticks. Carsten cannot play his second Dead Shadow this turn. This is gonna be a tough game. Oh, good draw though. Zombie Fish coming up. He can play that one. That one won't die to Engineered Explosives, but it's still a tough game. There's still the Council's Judgment. There's still the Better Skull in hand for Jasper Grimmer. So despite playing it for only 2 mana, this card has 7 mana converted mana cost. So it's gonna be a tough Engineered Explosives if you want to kill that one.
Yeah, you need to start doing some interesting work with Surge nodes and similar to get enough counters on your Engineered Explosives to deal with a Gomag Angler. Batterskull also threatening to come down at some point thanks to that Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, now also a True Name Nemesis. This is going to be a tough game for Carsten Linden. Doesn't play it, I agree. He could have played the True Name Nemesis, but instead he prefers to keep up 2 mana for the Engineered Explosives and 2 mana to play his Batterskull, getting using all of his 4 mana instead of using only 3. Problem is that if you're attacking for 5 and your opponent is attacking you for 4 and gaining 4 in the process you're not really winning. I'm curious what happened to the Council Judgment. Is it still in his hand at this point?
Possibly.
Oh, he's actually going to block the 4/4 Death Shadow, knowing that if the Death Shadow grows to a 5/5 or bigger, he still has the Engineered Explosives. But by this, he does make sure that Carsten has to go down to 8, which is only 2 attacks from Batterskull. So a great play by Jasper Grimmer here.
Very heads-up play.
Carsten actually goes down to 6, facing down the Batterskull. A very dangerous play. 2 hits from True Name Nemesis will also spell trouble for Carsten now.
Well, this Death Shadow, all of a sudden, comparatively large. 3 mana left up as well.
Oh, he also drew. Oh, wow.
Path to Exile.
That is a very good draw.
Jasper Grimmer not only has the full complement of copies of Swords to Plowshares, has even more ways of exiling creatures.
Yeah, and he can still play the True Name Nemesis after this. Gets to attack for 5. Carsten Linden doesn't even have the basic land to search for. Of course, usually these decks, they run like 1 island or 1 plains, but Carsten is already running both Underground Sea and Watery Grave, so he's already made a concession to that.
Speaking of concessions, I think we might be seeing one relatively soon here. As the attacks come in, when Stoneforge Mystic starts attacking, not a good sign for anyone on the other side of the table. Ponder, all right, another spin of the wheel here from Carsten Linden. That's going to be a shuffle.
We need a Damnation here. Bontu's Reckoning.
Yeah, so few ways of dealing with a true name nemesis once it's on this battlefield. I'm not sure if Carsten actually has any that he can be drawing into here.
Another Ponder.
All right, well, we asked for them to play this game so that we could see a little bit more of these legacy decks in action, and Carsten Linden, he's trying to cast as many spells as he possibly can in this turn, though to what avail, I'm not quite sure. Draws another Death Shadow. Double block there from Jasper Grimmer. Look at my gigantic 12/12 Death Shadow, Mum. That's very good, dear. I do have I have this Council's Judgment, I have this True Name Nemesis, I have the Earth and everything on it. I also have the match win. It was already there thanks to Torolf Severin and Arna Huschenbeth, but thank you to Jasper Grimmer for making it the full sweep for us, giving us a little bit more legacy to watch. We very much enjoyed seeing as much of that matchup as we can.
Oh, yeah.
This is Good Morning Magic. I'm Tim Willoughby here with Moraine Lebert. We're getting a chance to see some of the cool decks that people have brought that have made it through today too here in this team format. We've got Standard, we've got Modern, we've got Legacy, but we've got more Magic for you right after these ads. Hello and welcome back to Good Morning Magic. I'm Tim Willoughby, this is Moraine Libert, and Sunday mornings are all about us trying to bring you some of the cooler decks that have made it through into day 2 of Grand Prix Madrid in this case. It's a team format, so each team, we've got a standard deck, a modern deck, and a legacy deck. We've already seen some pretty cool legacy decks. We're going to get a chance to see kind of a cool standard deck.
This is a sweet one. I wish I could show the viewers, but it's going to be a little bit too...
It's all right. It's all right. We're going to be able to show them for real in a moment. We're actually going to head down to our time walk match right now and get a chance to see, in standard, Max Prich with new perspectives against Michael Bonder's blue-black mid-range. Bonder, Peterson, and Enevoldsen are pretty much leading the pack here in our tournament thus far at Grand Prix Madrid. Just a single draw off a perfect record for them. And we're going to get a chance to see new perspectives against Michael Bonder's blue-black control. Now, we're actually jumping in game 2 here just simply for time concerns. We're already at time in our main round. And we're going to get a chance to see this new perspectives deck getting thing going. He's desperately trying to generate lots of mana so that he can cast new perspectives. That means that all of a sudden his cycling becomes wildly efficient, and he can do very cool things with the likes of Chefette Monitor and Shadow of the Grave to burn through his deck in very quick fashion indeed. Michael Bonder, in the meantime, he's trying to spoil the party for everyone. He's playing blue-black control and, well, mid-range control. He's going to be essentially trying to stop Max Prich from doing any of the cool things that we desperately want to be able to show you.
Yeah, here Max actually didn't have a 4th land that came into play untapped, otherwise he would have been able to cycle that Chefette Monitor. Now he has to just cycle the Illumination and maybe something else on his end step, on his opponent's end step. Usually when we show you in the first 2 rounds on day 2 these creative decks, they're at like X and 2, X and 3, but these guys, Max Prich, he's on top of the standings. He's on table number 1, fighting with a very creative deck. I like it, how we get to see these creative decks actually being competitive.
Yeah, and given the amount of blue-black that we've seen in the standard portion of this event, I have to believe that Max Prich has a good plan against exactly this kind of deck. Yes, he dropped game 1 to Michael Bonder, but this is a really interesting list. He's got renewed faith if he needs to buy a little bit of time here. Once he gets up to the larger mana counts, he is able to do some very big impressive turns, and we really hope that we're going to get a chance to show you some of them. Dust Legion Zealot coming along for Michael Bonder here, letting him draw additional cards, albeit at the cost of some life, and the first Chefette Monitor being cycled here, allowing Max Prich to get up on lands in play here. New Perspectives, a card that very briefly made a splash. We saw it at the Pro Tour briefly, and I'm really intrigued to see whether or not it's primed for a comeback here.
Do you know what's good against all of these X1s?
What's that then?
Archfiend of Ifnir, and 1 cycle right there.
And that's something, this is a post-sideboard game. There is the potential that we're going to see one of those cast and then a cycle very soon indeed here from Max Prich.
Unfortunately, he is missing his 7th land. Otherwise, he would have been able to play the Archfiend and then cycle, for example, a Renewed Fate. Unfortunately, no 7th land, so he might actually have to just cycle another Chefette Monitor and wait for it 1 more turn. I like a card like Archfiend of Ifnir. It's very likely that your opponent has sideboarded out all of the counters, the Essence Scatters, and then if you're out of nowhere, being able to play this big creature and then cycle, so you make sure you kill all of the Glintsleeve Siphoners. A little nice sideboard tech there for Max Prich.
Well, another Chefette Monitor here getting cycled. That means that there will be sufficient land for Max Prich in this very next turn. Really intrigued to see how this game ends up going out. Michael Bonder. His game plan, at least at this point, relatively straightforward. He's got those creatures on the board, all of which have given him different ways of drawing additional cards, in addition to the lands that he's able to cycle from hand. This is kind of what he wants to be doing. He's already looking across to his left and sees Andreas Peterson having won his match. Thomas Enevoldsen 1-1 against Jan Stadler. This is all about his team somehow closing out the victory. But I'm really hoping that we get a chance to see Max Prich get something going here against Bonder's list. As much as I like Michael.
Yeah, and Michael might actually feel safe behind cards like Negate thinking, yeah, all I need to do is counter these new perspectives. Maybe he's thinking, yeah, if I can duress once or twice, I'm sure I can get rid of. But then there's the Archfiend, which is a very nice card to resolve on this particular board. And I wouldn't be surprised if Michael cybered out all of his Vraska's Contempt. So the Archfiend will be hard to handle.
There is the Archfiend of Ifnir, and we've got ourselves a reader. This is one that is going to represent a clear and present danger to all of those creatures on Michael Bonder's side of the battlefield. Because of course there's some cycling to follow. Of course there is.
Yeah, there we have it. Vizier untapping his blue-black land, drawing a card. He actually has to draw a card, right? I think he forgot to draw a card. And as we are in Time
I
Walk...
think he's paid the cost, but there's now a Glimmer of Genius. I guess that given that the
land is untapped.
all the creatures are dead, and the land is untapped.
As this is a Time Walk match, unfortunately we cannot go back and make sure he draws the card he needed to draw. So we'll have to continue as it is.
Cycling on both sides, but now it's very much Max Prich in the driver's seat all of a sudden. Really intrigued to see what Michael Bonder's follow-up is here, because this is definitely a bit of a pivot. I mean, there are, of course, creatures in Max Prich's deck, but normally it's them being cycled themselves that's kind of the interesting feature here.
He's discarding, so he's probably hoping to finish the game with Torrential Gearhulk. Keeping up Torrential Gearhulk plus negate. And as I said, I am not too surprised to see him cyber out all of these Vraska's Contempt, Essence Scatter, and now he's facing this 5/4 flying, which he'll have trouble handling. There's a lot of cyclers in Max Prich deck. At least the Torrential Gearhulk will survive.
It takes a lot of cycling to kill a Torrential Gearhulk.
Oh, look at that. Cycle the Obstructionist. Make sure the Torrential Gearhulk doesn't get to flashback. Give your Gearhulk -1/-1 counter. Wow. What a play by Max.
I like it. I do. And he's still got plenty of mana left up to do more cycling, make life more fiddly for Michael Bonder here.
Cycle Shafet Monitor, get myself another land. And he might actually cycle Vizier, untap his Archfiend, and block the Torrential Gearhulk. That's an option he has.
I would kind of love it if that happened. Honestly, this is the kind of magic that I wanted to see from Standard. I wanted to see someone coming along with something a little bit different, a little bit special, just with which to shake things up a little bit more than maybe they have been already. The cool thing about all these cycling decks, of course, is that once things get going, they draw into their good cards very easily because they're drawing a lot of additional cards. Field of Ruin coming down there for Michael Bonder as he tries to find a way out of this situation. He now has a comparatively small Torrential Gearhulk, maybe just a Torrential Gear at this point.
Now a Gonti or a Scarab God. I think I would have preferred to play the Scarab God because that one is hard to kill. I'm not sure what Michael Bonde is actually hoping to hit here with... Oh, there we have it, the cast out. He's found his answer to the creature. The cast out from his opponent. Probably the only way for him to handle that Archfiend of Ifnir.
So now we see that there's... I mean, there was a Drakehaven on the top there as well there, which would have been one of the ways that Max Prich could have closed out this game a little bit faster. As things stand, though, he's going to have to just rely on the fact that he's got a tapped-out opponent and see what he can achieve on this turn. Gift of Paradise coming down. That's going to mean that he's generating a little bit of additional mana here. Cycling Vizier of Tumbling Sands. All right, I see where this is going, and I kind of like it.
Ooh, and look at that. Another nice creature from Max. I really like his Cyber plan. The Scarab God coming in after Cyber. He knows it's not going to work out if he needs to resolve a 6-mana enchantment against decks with Negate and Duress. He recognizes that. He built his Cyber plan to beat exactly these cards. Scarab God now resolving and making sure there's no Gearhulk, unfortunately, but there are, for example, the Zealots or the Siphoners. This is...
I mean, he could also just get back some of his Shefet monitors. They're relatively big creatures. I guess they come back as 4/4s. Vizier of the Tumbling Sands, maybe?
Obstructionist is a flyer. And he's got so much mana thanks to the Gift of Paradise and all of these lands he searched for with Chafet Monitor. I really like how Max Pritch is approaching this sideboarded game.
Yeah, for those of you just tuning in, Max Pritch is playing a New Perspectives, well, sort of a combo deck. It's a cycling theme deck, depending on how you want to look at it. In these post-sideboarded games, going with a bit more of a creature plan, something that you sometimes see from combo decks in Game 1, just changing up their strategy a little bit. Currently a game down to Michael Bonder, and the team of Bonder, Peterson and Evelson, who are currently at the top of the standings, they're putting up quite the fight. Andreas Peterson already winning his match against Fabian Thiele in Modern. And here we see Dust Legion Zealot the choice as the creature to bring back as a zombie. Yeah, it'll cost him a life, but he gets to draw an additional card.
And he also puts the Gonti in the graveyard so he can reanimate it next turn. Although Michael Bond might actually be the one doing it. Yeah, there we have it.
Just gets there first. Scarab Gods on both sides of the battlefield now.
1, 2, 3. Ooh. He gets another cast out. That's just so crazy.
This has been
he cybered out
strange game.
Yeah, he cybered out all of his creature removal, yet he manages to get rid of both the Scarab God and the Archfiend of Ifnir, thanks to Gonti. That is crazy.
Oh. Our feed has just dropped. We will try and get that back for you in just one moment. There's a slight technical error there. We on our side can't quite see what's going on here, but we will be back with you very, very shortly. Let's see if we can get that fixed up for you in just one moment.
I imagine Max is now untapping 12 lands. He's going to reanimate 3 creatures, going to make 3 4/4s, while you guys are just waiting for us to fix the problems. Let's just commentate on the game as if we think what is happening. So, so he makes a 4/4, another Zealot, drawing another card, going down to 8 life.
It would be lovely if he had those creatures on the battlefield, but yeah, currently we're just trying to make sure that we can make sure that what we're talking about is something that we can actually see. We're going to take a very brief break as we try and fix this issue for you. Do not go anywhere. We will be back with the conclusion of this match very, very shortly indeed. See you soon.